What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my mix chain for editing and mixing podcasts. But before I do that, if you're liking the content, loving the content, would love for you to smash that subscribe button, putting out more and more tutorials as well as episodes for my podcast, which is called Clipped. And Clipped delivers top-notch podcast production tips, resources, and education, all aimed to help you start, grow, and monetize your show. And today I'm talking about mixing. So let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, this is an episode I did, episode 71 on 6 ways to measure podcast growth. And here we go. So the first thing I do, this purple track here called Pod, that is like the main track. That's me. I always start with the R Compressor by Waves. Very mild ratio. Threshold about -20 to -25, just depends on how hot things were recorded. I use this on literally the first thing on everything I do with my voice and with my guest voice. This is a solo episode, so it's just myself. Always start with a compressor to try to catch those peaks. This is a fast attack time and like a medium release. That's the R Compressor by Waves. Next, I do the Focusrite Red 2 EQ, and I put it on the vocal setting here, but then I adjust a couple things. So I've got the roll off at 36 hertz, which is very, very low. It's just to get rid of that really low end. I don't even know that my voice really is too audible at that range, but I do roll that off. Then about even around like 100 hertz, something like that, 110 hertz. And then you can see some of the other settings. I do like a low pass filter around 16, chop off, like reduce a little bit of that very, very high end. This always goes. This is an analog modeled EQ. And so, yeah, you're kind of getting that warmth sound. Then I actually go into like the surgical EQ. This is the Fab Filter Pro Q2. Again, another roll off. What is this? At 55 hertz. A boost here in like the low to mid range. I'm going to cut here for any like boxiness, anything like that. And this part can change a little bit. The RE2 EQ, I usually leave that. This is saved as a template, by the way. So when I open this up, this is all saved. And I do make minor adjustments, mostly on this Fab Filter Pro Q2. But that's how I get my sound thus far. Then I actually put the RX, this is RX9, voice denoise. So there's a couple settings here. That was actually on music, don't know why, but it should be on dialogue. Middle of the screen. And then for the filter type, I typically put gentle. I have used it on surgical. That's if there's like a lot more like static or white noise. Right here, it says steeper filter allows better separation of signal and noise. My stuff's usually recorded pretty well. I'm in a treated room. Honestly, it's hot as hell. I'm in LA. The fan is on right now. Probably should have turned it off, but I didn't. It's just hot. So I have this on. I don't think you'll be able to hear it, but just a heads up if you do. So I usually leave this on gentle. Let's see if you can see this in action. So you could see here, I keep it on adaptive mode. And then you can see how much reduction is taking place. I'm well above the noise threshold there. Then I do one more EQ, and this is another Fab Filter Pro Q2 with just, again, some minor EQ. Well, actually, -7 decibels. That's not too minor, but it's just some cuts here to just get a little bit tighter with the voice. Then I run it through a de-esser. This just catches a little bit of that surveillance. But honestly, I recommend this chain for everybody to model something like this. Some people put EQ before compression. Some people put the noise reduction as the very first thing in the chain. I'm not a fan of that because after I've compressed and then EQ'd, I might have been able to like kind of get rid of some of that noise already, or at least maybe like EQ a little bit of those frequencies out, at least probably dampen it. And then if with the compressor, if I'm like boosting the overall like output of the compressor, so thus like boosting the volume, the level of the track, it may induce a little bit of noise, but then I catch it later in the chain with this voice denoise. Anyway, then I've got this is inactive right now, but a D reverb by RX9, and I don't have it on, but if I do, it depends on my voice, where I record. 90% of the time I record in my studio, but sometimes I record remotely at a co-working space that I'm a part of. And it can be, there's kind of a lot of reverb in there, but I'll usually put it no more than like 4.5, something like that. Tail length depends on if it's like there's long reverb tails in the room or if there's shorter reverb tails in the room. And then I play with the low mids, high, low, whatever in here. Don't like to crank those too high either, but depends on the session. All right. And then this purple pod track right here that I just highlighted, that feeds into the vocal bus. And on the vocal bus, I have an R Vox, and not too big of a set. Dude, if you pull this thing down, it squashes the hell out of it. It's kind of a cool sound, but it can be really aggressive and it'll boost breaths. It'll make you really sound like like an exciter on your voice, almost really like kind of crunchy and super in your face. So to be honest, I usually leave that around, somewhere between minus like 3 and 5. It's maybe half a decibel on the gain reduction. And then I will feed that vocal bus. That's here. That's my vocal bus. That feeds into my mix bus. In fact, all of this feeds into my mix bus. And so there's an add up top here. That feeds into bus 1 and 2, which is the voiceover bus. And then that feeds into the mix bus. And on the other end, this music track, there's some music in throughout, you can see that feeds into this music bus right here. And if I need to, I can like adjust. I have that pulled down. If I need to, I can pull it down like a little bit more. But just depends on, that's pretty dialed in. I usually don't mess with that. That music bus also feeds into the mix bus. And on the mix bus is my favorite bus compressor by Slate Digital. If you don't know Slate, they've got tons of great plugins. To be honest, a lot of their stuff's geared towards music production, but I love this bus compressor. Let's see, I've got makeup gain, 5 decibel attack, like right in the middle, not fast, not slow, like a medium attack. Sometimes I'll adjust the input if needed to feed the signal going into the compressor. Sometimes I'll adjust the threshold, but this is pretty dialed in, somewhere in like the minus 20 range. That's just catching like the very end of everything and kind of just giving it like a little oomph and a little glue to like things together. And so I love this Slate Digital compressor. Then lastly, that all goes into the master channel, which has the Waves L1 Ultra Maximizer output ceiling. I always put -1. There's no like, in music, you probably put this at like -1. But in podcasting, there's no real like industry standard for this threshold. If I need to get things a little louder, I will keep bringing down the threshold here, but usually never more than like -6 and change if need be. This is actually just a setting, the voice broadcast setting. You can see right here where my mouse is. So I'll call that up and then make tiny adjustments off of that. since this is mostly like, there is some music, but it's mostly like me, and this is a solo episode just talking. So I like this like broadcast, like voiceover feature, because while the podcast isn't a voiceover, it kind of has that feel. And then lastly, by waves is this. So this is like your loudness meter. Podcast, they say mix to minus 16 lufs. And I should be hitting that. I had changed some of the settings on the compressors, so that's why it's super loud right now. But usually this will be hitting like here. Let me pull that down for you. I was like, why the hell is it coming in so hot? This, I'll pull that up. Here we go. Now this is right. So this long term will change to like between 16 and 15. I usually aim for minus 15. It just depends on the show, but between minus 17 and minus 15. But I try to hit minus 15 if there's like more noise in the recording for whatever reason, which is rare. I usually go for like minus 17 because then it won't get it too loud. Then it's not like so loud that it induces, you can like some of that noise becomes audible. So this a little bit better here. But that's it. That's my podcasting mix chain. Hey, everybody does it different, but this is like a good, well-rounded place to start. Compressors, EQs, noise reduction, going into a little bit more compression, and then a limiter. Kind of like a standard workflow, even though everybody's workflow is different. This is like a good baseline that you can use. Keep listening, keep engaging, and keep creating. I'm out.